Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. The latest throughout the province and ongoing suffering of one small town due to flooding. Plus, a troubling trend.
I just sat on the floor and cried.
Landlords demanding huge rent increases, often backed up by threats. And meet the 6-year-old Kamloops boy who can solve this.
Solve it? Yeah, just solve it.
In less than 2 minutes.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. We begin tonight with major flooding devastating the village of Cache Creek in BC's interior. Several homes have been ordered to evacuate. Major highways and roads are blocked. Evacuation orders have also been issued for properties in Grand Forks. And as Joel Ballard reports, the community is bracing for rain.
The downtown core of Cache Creek turned into a river. Water and debris flow freely.
We've got devastating flooding happening in Cache Creek.
Mayor Ranta says water levels in the actual creek are the highest he has ever seen.
It's gone from being an emergency to a disaster.
April was relatively cool, so there wasn't as much gradual snowmelt. Then the weather turned, and the freshet hit all at once.
We've had about 6 or 7 days now of well above normal temperatures, and that really has accelerated snowmelt.
And looking ahead, there's rain in the forecast for Friday through Saturday.
We kind of think about worst case scenarios. It really gives us that sort of 1-2 punch in terms of conditions.
Right now, accessing the village is difficult. Flooding has closed the 2 major highways that lead to Cache Creek. Highway 1 is closed at Collins Road and Highway 97 at Stevenson. For some residents, there's frustration and anger that there weren't more mitigation efforts during the off-season, as flood risks aren't uncommon for the village.
It's horrific. I don't even know if that word describes what we're going through. Again, it has to stop.
The province says the flooding season isn't unexpected.
With climate change upon us and the climate crisis upon us, we are going to be seeing more extreme weather events and more natural hazards hit British Columbians right through the year.
She says the government has deployed hundreds of thousands of sandbags across BC, and her team is working directly with communities on response plans. In the village, 5 properties have been ordered to evacuate. 1 is likely lost. For his part, the mayor is holding out hope the village has seen the worst of it.
I don't think Cache Creek here will get worse. I can't imagine how it could get worse.
Joel Ballard, CBC News, Vancouver.
Let's bring in meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe, who's been tracking this and the active thunderstorms in the area at the moment.
Yeah, Anita, just about an hour ago, thunderstorm rolled through Cache Creek, bringing fresh rain to the watershed. You can see the big picture of this line of thunderstorms tracking up from the south, and there is a risk that the same communities, including Cache Creek, could see another thunderstorm bubble up in the next couple of hours. This was actually the thunderstorm that moved through Cache Creek. It is now tracking up towards Williams Lake. The thunder strikes and the lightning and thunder and the downpours were heaviest just east of Cache Creek. But again, anything flowing into the watershed still adding to the problem. And you can see with so much of our watersheds under either flood warnings, flood watches, or high stream advisories, these little convective downpours are not good news with water levels already high because of the snow melt. This is the setup that we don't want to see. Things should stabilize tomorrow. But I do want to show you that new flood warning in place for the South Thompson, including Cache Creek, and all of the orange really just upgraded today. So most of southern BC now under the flood watch because freezing levels have been up around 3,000 meters. We will see those kinds of freezing level heights for one more day, along with temperatures approaching 30 degrees. Here's Thursday's highs. The Okanagan could be hitting the 30s, so we're still looking at that rapid melt here on the South Coast. We're also looking at another warm day for Thursday. It's Thursday night. We'll see a Pacific system roll in, and Friday, starting to see temperatures come down across the province. That's when the rain will move in for Metro Vancouver. I think it might take until Friday night to really see that big system rain track across to the interior. Friday is our washout day for Metro Vancouver, but we're really keeping an eye on it. There's Kamloops, Cache Creek for Friday night into Saturday. So a lot going on in the long-range forecast, Anita, but luckily a calmer next week.
No kidding. And we actually do have more on some of the flooding that's happening in the Okanagan region, so we will get to that shortly. Thanks, Johanna.
You're welcome.
One man is dead and another recovering from injuries after what police suspect was a targeted shooting last night. It happened at around 8 o'clock in a parking lot on 108th Avenue near 148th Street in the Guildford neighborhood. 2 people were taken to hospital, 1 in critical condition. That person later died. The Integrated Homicide Investigation Team believes the shooting is connected to the ongoing gang conflict in BC. A possible suspect vehicle was later found in Langley. It appears someone tried but failed to set it on fire. Well, a number of Surrey renters say their landlord has left them with an impossible choice: agree to huge rent increases or risk losing their homes. As Liam Britton explains, it's an example of a troubling trend in which landlord demands are often backed up by threats.
Do you like living here?
Yeah. Well, my son just lives over here. Sorry.
77-year-old Rod Hill says his emotions have been untuned since a stroke 2 years ago. He's lived at Winsome Place Apartments for 15 years. He doesn't want to leave, but a few weeks ago, his landlord asked him to agree to an over 40% rent increase. And if he doesn't pay, they'll look to sell his apartment on the open market.
That's a little hard when you're on a restricted income. You know, I'm just getting a Canada pension. I don't know why they're doing it, other than pure greed.
A neighbor who's lived here over 20 years is in the same boat. She remembers getting the notice slid under her door.
I nearly fainted. I just sat on the floor and cried. I was terrified. I was just terrified. Not just about paying the money, that I'm on a pension. I can't afford it. But what's my alternative, you know?
The landlord wouldn't talk to CBC, but in the letter to Hill and De Gonzalez wrote that building expenses have gone up. It notes that because it is actually a stratified condominium building that has just been rented out by the landlord, the units can be sold, and the sales could begin in July. And if the new buyer wants to move in, the renters could be evicted, but they won't be sold if they agree to pay up.
Now, you might think to yourself that how is a 40% rent increase even possible? Aren't annual rent increases capped at, 1 or 2% or some calculation involving inflation? In fact, if a landlord and a renter come to a mutual agreement on a higher rent increase, that's completely allowable. And some experts are saying that as the rental market gets out of control, more and more landlords are using threats to get their tenants to agree to these high rent increases.
Since we're starting from a point where the building's already stratified, it makes the threat, I think, much more real.
He says Winsome's situation has some unusual aspects, but often landlords will demand more rent by saying they will use the suite themselves, either personally or for their family.
I think what it ultimately is an example of how our current regulations to try and keep housing affordable don't fully function.
The residential tenancy branch says they are speaking to the landlord to find out more info and make sure he follows the rules. But for these renters seeking affordability, it feels like a door is closing. Liam Britton, CBC News, Surrey.
BC's housing minister says he is aware of the Surrey tenants' plight and that BC Housing will be reaching out to all parties to inform them of what their rights are.
Well, majority of landlords are good people and operate in a good way, but this is an example that there are some bad apples. We know, and the tenants should know, that they are under no obligation to agree to those terms. And in fact, I've asked BC Housing to have our enforcement team proactively reach out to the landlord and potential tenants to let them know what their rights are.
Now, after drug decriminalization, some cities are enacting policies to ban drugs from parks and public spaces. Kamloops is the latest municipality to move ahead, crafting and voting on a bylaw just last night. But as Mayor Baines explains, the BC United Party says the province approved decriminalization, and so it should bring in a blanket policy for all municipalities.
It's an unintended effect of the province's pilot project to decriminalize hard drugs and stem the overdose crisis in BC. Cities saying they want to ban drugs in their parks and public places.
Your children access our library downtown here in Kamloops, and we've heard multiple stories of children witnessing overdoses that are happening in that space.
The Kamloops City motion includes an amendment to work with Interior Health. Ultimately, a bylaw regarding health issues will need approval from the province. This advocate, who has dealt with addiction, says cities should ensure there are places for people to use safely.
If cities don't want public use, then they need to open up, supervised consumption sites, both sites for inhalation and IV use. You can't just complain about it being out in the open and not giving a safe place for people to go.
In the parks of some cities, critics argue that you can consume heroin or cocaine without legal consequence. This Maple Ridge City Councillor is bringing a motion forward next week.
Communities are saying enough is enough. The current model of operation is not working for anyone.
It's been a contentious issue in the BC legislature. The opposition is critical of the way the province has handled the issue and is calling for a blanket policy to prevent drug use in some public spaces.
And this seems like a very basic first step guardrail that would be very easy to implement and really should not be that difficult for the government to agree with.
The ministry says municipalities and police had input into what the decriminalization pilot program would look like, and will be working with cities as they move forward with bylaws that suit their communities.
In light of the fact that the majority of people who are dying from toxic drug poisoning are dying inside, alone, unsupported, we need to do everything that we can to save lives here.
Sicamous has already enacted a bylaw with input from Interior Health. New Westminster, Kelowna, Nanaimo, and Campbell River have also shown interest in rules preventing drug use in parks, beaches, and playgrounds. The Ministry of Health will have the final say. Mira Baines, CBC News, Victoria.
The McLeod Lake Indian Band north of Prince George has signed an agreement with the province over managing resources on their territory. Chief Harley Chinji is calling it a milestone in determining how to develop and protect resources and an important step in setting a path for its nation's future. The agreement follows a BC Supreme Court ruling in 2021 that found the Treaty 8 rights of the Blueberry River First Nation were breached by industrial development on their territory that had been authorized by BC governments over the years. All right, returning now to our top story and the floods affecting parts of BC's North Okanagan. Homeowners are assessing the damage after a creek flooding a neighborhood on the Okanagan Indian Band Reserve near Vernon. As Brady Strachan reports, officials are worried there's more meltwater to come as temperatures rise through the week.
You can see behind me where the creek took a new course through this neighborhood, ripping away the concrete and the gravel beneath, tearing away this street all the way down to the lake. It's ripped away everything in its path and undermined homes and even partially buried a car down there. It's quiet here today. The creek changed course late last night. Now, neighbors and officials are surveying the damage. Everything from buried cars and the foundations of homes to infrastructure damage, like washed out water lines. And they're looking to see what's left of this once sleepy neighborhood. Yesterday, water was pouring right through the home where Derek McGee's parents live. He's here to see the extent of the damage.
I was wondering if I was going to have to start moving stuff upstairs in the house, thinking it was going to be filled full of water, given what I saw last night with water up our patio door. So I'm pleasantly surprised from that standpoint, but yeah, now just kind of walking around in shock, wondering what's next.
This normally quiet creek has become a raging torrent, gushing with meltwater from the sudden warm temperatures this week in the Okanagan. Now, crews are working to remove debris and carve a path for the water to keep it away from homes as there is more warm temperatures and rain in the forecast.
That helps, but it's now when we're starting to warm up in the afternoon that poses that increased flow, and that'll continue for that to come down through the watershed and go out into the lake.
Meanwhile, people in this neighborhood are still taking stock and seeing what there is left to salvage, hoping that the water does not return so they can begin the long process of cleaning up and rebuilding. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Parker's Cove near Vernon.
It's a life lesson from a rather large bear. A mother bear and her cubs caught scrounging through the garbage. We'll chat with a bear expert next. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. A dance program in Winnipeg is helping Indigenous youth develop their leadership skills. Participants are encouraged to focus on their mental health and give tips on how to prepare for life after high school.
When I seen the older kids at my school perform it when I was in grade 5, I've just been wanting to be in the program, wanting to be involved. I think it's helping me enhance my leadership skills. It's helping me expand them, learn more about different types of ways to lead.
Our very first day, it's uncomfortable. Everybody's looking at each other and not knowing what to do. As all the days pass, a day in, everybody's talking, everybody's having a good time.
8, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
I'm going through a hard time in life. I really am. Being in this program helps me a lot with my mental health, helps me a lot to move on from things I'm supposed to move on.
Keep it up tempo. 5 and 6. Give me 5, 6, 7, 8. 1.
They've all been working so hard this year. It's amazing to see them push through so much adversity with a lot of things happening in their community, tragedies, passings, but also pushing through. They're still going to school, they're still laughing, they're still smiling, they're still dancing, they're still here. As an Indigenous person, you see that, and it just makes you cry.
Just try it, even if you're scared, even if you don't think you can do it. If you just push yourself out there, you'll get more comfortable with yourself, grow your self-esteem more, and you'll just feel good at the end of it.
It's equal parts cute and concerning. A brown bear and her cubs caught on camera treating themselves to all-you-can-eat garbage buffet in Kamloops. Sean King was walking in the city's Valley View neighborhood earlier this week when he spotted the mother bear teaching her cubs how to break into garbage cans as if they were in the kitchen pantry. King and others say that despite city bylaws around garbage cans, this type of bear behavior is seen frequently in the fall, but not as much as in the spring. For more on the bears and their frequent foraging, let's turn live to Ted Trayer, who joins us tonight from the North Cariboo region just west of Quesnel. Ted is former Wildlife BC coordinator for WildSafe BC coordinator rather for the Cariboo region. Ted, you fielded a lot of calls about hungry bears. How common is it to see bears foraging for food in trash cans at this time of year?
It's very common, unfortunately. we no matter where we live in BC, we're all basically very close to wildlife habitat, and wildlife moves in and around our communities, and they're always looking for a free, easy meal. So anytime they can find it, they're going to grab it.
Yeah, so let's talk about that free, easy meal a little bit more. Why would they want to, to eat our garbage when they could be eating things in the wild?
Well, bears are creatures of habit. And they're very smart. So once they learn where a good food source is, they're always going to come back. They've taken bears and trapped them and driven them a half a mountain range away, and a week and a half later they're right back at the exact same spot, knocking on your door looking for a snack, right? So there's all these unnatural food sources in our communities that we need to manage, and a lot of times, unfortunately, people aren't doing that. So wildlife comes in, they find the easy meal, and they're going to go for it every time. In the fall, bears go through a phase called hyperphagia. And it's a big fancy word, but what it means is they're awake up to 20 hours a day, feeding on 20,000 calories a day because they hibernate, so they don't eat for 5 to 6 months, right? So anytime they can get a free, easy meal, they will. In and around our communities, we've got lots of unnatural food sources. Again, garbage is an easy one. People will leave it out the night before. If we can smell it, bears can smell it. They've got a nasal cavity the size of a toonie. They can smell over a kilometer away. So anytime they can find that free, easy meal, they're going to go for it. Right now, we have people leave their bird feeders out. There's 8,000 calories in a kilogram of bird seed. Again, free, easy meal. In the fall, every neighborhood I visited had people that weren't dealing with their fruit trees. Again, the bears are going in for those fruit trees, the free, easy meal every time. A friend of mine loves his pet. We all loves our pets. He bought an expensive bag of dog food, brought it in, put it in his carport, and the bear came in and ate it that night. Again, they're going for that free.
A lot of stuff there I didn't know. I want to pull up some photos right now that we received today from Grouse Mountain. These show bears, playing in the snow. And of course, while they are very cute, we need to talk about what we should do if we do come across a bear like this that looks cute, foraging through our garbage or hanging out in our backyard.
Basically, if you come across that kind of thing, it's best to basically call the conservation officer to let them know what's going on. Unfortunately, we don't want to have a confrontation with a bear. It's a wild animal. A lot of people think, oh, they're cute. I want to get close. I want to get a selfie with whatever the wild animal be on the side of the road. Bad idea. Don't do it. These are wild animals.
We have to leave it there. We are out of time tonight, but thank you so much for joining us, Ted Trayer.
Thank you.
Coming up after the break, meet a 6-year-old boy who can solve a Rubik's Cube in minutes.
It's still there. That inversion layer, sitting like a cap over the lower mainland, trapping our pollution. How bad was it today? Depends who you ask.
Surprising for BC.
Anyway, not as bad as LA.
I lived in Bonn, Germany for just over 4 years, and they used to really get pollution there. I mean, the pollution here looked pretty good yet, so we're still blessed.
There's a lot of other places that are a lot worse. Where have you seen worse? Chilliwack.
But according to the Greater Vancouver Regional District, it's not great. The GVRD has 47 monitoring stations like this one in Cloverdale. Most showed poor air quality readings today. So what are people seeing when they look at this poor air?
They're looking at particulate matter. Basically, the culprit is from the motor vehicle. We call the particulate matter PM10, that's particle matter 10 microns and smaller. People with respiratory problems or heart conditions, they're really affected by this type of material.
One of the worst areas people are affected is in Ridge Meadows. The hospital here runs a clinic for those with chronic lung disorders. Most days this room would be full,
But today, the air is so bad, most patients can't even make it in.
We've never had a situation where we've only had one patient show up, so it seems to be correlating pretty good with the weather.
How does the smog affect someone with a chronic problem?
2 or 3 days ago when it was really bad, you couldn't see the mountains. It was really difficult, even in the car. I mean, you're really gasping sort of for breath. It's like a heavy weight on your chest is what it really works out at.
One defense against smog, this charcoal filter mask.
Even healthy individuals are using it because they're trying to prevent these respiratory symptoms from occurring. I use it myself. It's a very, very good tool.
The good news is Environment Canada says clouds will start rolling in tomorrow, and they should help break up this inversion layer that's been hanging over our heads. Mind you, temperatures will also be lower. Alan Waterman, CBC News, Vancouver.
We end our show tonight with a 6-year-old boy from Kamloops who can solve a Rubik's Cube, well, really, really fast. Ever since his mom realized he had a talent for it, she's been encouraging him and looking for competitions. Avian can solve any 3x3 and 2x2 cube and takes his cubes with him everywhere. Watch as he shows us how to speed solve a Rubik's Cube.
My name is Avian Moria and I'm 6 years old. It was actually I started with a 3x3 and I picked it up from last trip from India and I just started playing with it. It was actually my sister's cube. I solved it by first doing the daisy, but I don't really do the daisy. I just flip the cube over. So I go to the white center and make a cross. And then we need the cross like this. So we will make the cross. And then you need to match the colors right beside it. And then flip the cube over. And then we need these pieces. And then insert it in. And then the second layer with an algorithm, and then we will just do an algorithm for our yellow cross, which is FURURF, and then make sure they're in the right position, and then the final corners with the algorithm. And then it's like solving the cube then. If you got a piece like keto on the top, you could just rotate the front face. This is your front face, which side you are facing. If you got a white on your front face, just rotate the top layer. And then,
oh, it's very confusing.
How about you solve this one for him?
Yeah, show me how to solve it.
Incredible. I love seeing little ones doing things that I'll never be able to do. Awesome stuff. Thanks for watching CBC Vancouver News tonight. We will see you tomorrow.